unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted Show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to another episode of the Raw Unscripted Show with yours truly, Mr. Christopher Rausch, your No Excuses coach. And I'm excited to be here with you guys tonight, whether you're live on the video cast, which we are every single Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or of course, you're listening to us on the audio podcast in one of every 33 countries we're in. I just checked it, the information recently. Thank you guys for tuning in. Last week, we celebrated our 300th episode, 6 years of being on the air consistently every single week here doing the Raw Unscripted Show. So thank you guys for tuning in. And also thank you guys for sending us the emails. And if you ever want to get in touch with me, if it's not through social media, guys can send us a email, info@noexcusescoach.com, noexcusescoach.com, info@noexcusescoach.com. Send us a question. This year, as promised, I'm going to be doing a lot more solo shows. Tonight happens to be a guest night. So I would love for you guys to send me information on what it is that you would like me to talk about here in 2025. What are some challenges that you're having in your life? What can I do to serve you? And then I will create a show around that and perhaps even offer some exercises within that show, because I view this podcast like this. I view it like class. And a lot of people can't afford to work with me. They have a lot of other commitments to work, whatnot are going on. But I consider this like a masterclass. And every single week you show up here, and I prefer it on the video cast because you guys can engage with us in the comments and ask me questions there. But you show up every single week, and guess what? You do three things. Out of the 60 minutes, you take 3 action items and you implement those over the next 7 days. I firmly believe, and I've proven it to be true with other listeners who have done this, 3 action items within 7 days, you implement those, and then you come back next week for the next class and you implement those 3 strategies and you compound those efforts over a period of time. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to take time. Over a period of time, you are going to increase your self-confidence. You are going to realize that when you apply your efforts and when you do them consistently and when you do it regardless whether you feel like it or not, guess what? You start gaining that confidence. You start seeing results. You start realizing this, that, hey, I wish I would have done it sooner. And then over that period of time, you're going to start to see results pretty soon. But I'm going to say within the first 3 months, you're going to start seeing preliminary results, because we're also going to focus on your health. Because when you take care of yourself and you love yourself, you start to feel better, you start to do better, you start to look at the things you're tolerating in your life, you start to make different decisions, you start prioritizing yourself, you stop giving yourself excuses, and then in 6 months, you start to really see, wow, this is sustainable. And then in the first year, you start to look back in the rearview mirror and go, you know what? I'm no longer that version of who I was. And because I've taken this consistent action, you start to develop the mindset, what can I do next? You know what? I've been putting off starting a business. You know what? I've been putting off changing careers. I've been putting off ending this marriage. I've been putting off whatever it might be that you've been putting off because you want to stay in your comfort zone. You start to realize the capacity of what you can do is pretty remarkable. And that's what I invite you guys all to consider wherever you're at in your life right now. I want you to consider this, that the possibility in 3, 6 months, 12 months, that you can become a different person, because it has taken you up until this time, however old you are, it's taken you this long to become the person that you are. So I invite you to sit there and have that perspective of excitement, not fear, not dread, not, oh my God, it's going to be so much work, which I hear people fucking say all the time, which pisses me off, because yeah, it's going to be a little bit of work. You're going to have to put some blood, sweat, and tears into it. But guess what? On the other side of it, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. I would not be the man I am today had I not gone through all those horrible experiences that I care not to really relive, but I did because I wrote my book, which will be coming out later this year. But I realized that in those challenging times, that's when we learn and grow the most. I'll give you a homework assignment for this particular episode, The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. It's on YouTube. It's free. There's no excuses. It's like an hour and 23 minutes. Watch that. Watch it a couple of times. Take notes and realize within your own journey that there are those peaks and those valleys. And when you get to that peak and you look out, like anything in life that you've actually physically have obtained in your life, isn't the peak, isn't the view better when you've worked your ass off for it? When you go on vacation and realize, man, I've saved up for 3 years to to be here and have this experience. Or you actually climb a physical mountain, which I just did last week. I'm climbing Mount Rubidoux, something I haven't done in a while. I got to the top and the view was just amazing because I know that the pain and the struggle that I suffered going up that mountain was worth it to be able to enjoy that vista. And so many people aren't willing to put in that work, but yet they want that result. And that's just ridiculous. I'm here to tell you that through those trials and tribulations, through those sacrifices, through that discipline, when you achieve the things in life that you focus on most, it's pretty incredible how it is that you feel. And that's what I'm trying to tell you is when you build a legacy that you're proud of, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. I just found out a great person in the music industry. He was on MTV. His name's Matt Pinfield. He quit drinking. He got in a physically great shape. He just had a stroke. I just found out about this. I saw it on the news. He had a stroke. He's incapacitated. And you just don't know when your time is up. So stop playing the someday game. Stop thinking one day I'll do it. And what I'm really saying is I might want you to stop procrastinating. So tonight on the show, we have an amazing guest that I'm excited to have this conversation with. We've been on a few panels together. We've had little conversations here and there over the years, but I get to have his attention for the next 45 minutes or so. And I invite you watching and listening to have some questions ready, engage with us in this conversation because we're going to be talking about procrastination, and we all do it. Even I do it. And some people were surprised in the preparation of the show. I was sharing people that I was talking about procrastination. They said, well, Chris, that must be nice. You don't procrastinate. I'm sure you don't. You're the no excuses coach. No, I do. I do procrastinate. But I do a much better job than I did 10, 15 years ago because I have my why and I have my legacy and I have people in my life that hold me accountable. We got Debbie Bettendorf in the house. What's up, gorgeous? You guys got to be following Debbie. She's an amazing soul. And I don't just say that. She says, repeat what you want us to watch, please and thanks. The Hero's Journey. It's called the Joseph Campbell Story. It's on YouTube. What I will do is I'll post it in the comments for this particular episode here on Facebook because that's where you're joining us. Oh, actually, you're joining us from LinkedIn. I'll put it in the comments there as well. But the Joseph Campbell Story, The Hero's Journey, it's like an hour and 23 minutes. Phenomenal. You will love the shit out of it. We got Robert Broker in the house. He says, hi, Christopher. We got Jacqueline Rose, my Irish sister from another mister. She says, hello, everyone. Christopher, what's going on? Jacqueline also says here, I've been through so much in my life. I should be able to bench press a Buick. Yes, you can mentally bench press a Buick. And for those of you guys that don't know what a Buick is, go Google it because it was a car that was actually pretty cool. Actually, the Buick Grand National was a badass motherfucking car. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming to the Raw Unscripted Show, none other than Mr. Davey Williams. What's up, Davey Williams? How you doing from the other coast of the United States?
What's going on, Christopher Rausch? About the same thing as you, just about 3 hours ahead of you. I definitely want to start off. First of all, your opening off the chain, bro. And I don't want to procrastinate in a couple important things. I just want to say real fast. One, thank you for having me and my good looks. They may be all I have to rely on. So hopefully I can ship that in the next hour. Kidding, everybody. Congrats on 301 now episodes. Just so stoked for everything. The value and what you bring to the world, brother, is unrivaled. And I make no excuses in admitting that to anybody else in my business circle or even my personal circle. Congrats on the upcoming book and just congrats on everything, man. It's an honor to be here with you, brother. You know that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. It means the world to me for you to say that because I highly respect you in this space. And we've had some great conversations both in panels and offline. Let's see. Debbie just said, yeah, the hero's journal. No. The hero's journey, my dear. Get the cotton out of your ears. What I want to start with tonight, and thank you about the opening. That's totally was raw and unscripted just from my heart. Given what I said, what is it that you want most to get across to people listening and watching tonight? What is the message? What is the lesson? What is the thing we can seed people with that you want them to walk away knowing and believing and trusting in their heart of hearts to have that kick-ass unstoppable life?
Yeah, I think the main crux, man, the main theme is going to bring us back to really simplifying to amplify, simplifying the thought process and really being able to attract and amplify the results that you want. And there are very simple, pragmatic, strategic ways to do that. Very much like you, I think it's one of the things that really got us to bond from the get-go is we're both very unconventional in our approaches, very outside the box thinkers. But when everybody is done listening to this episode, I want them to be laughing at themselves and me because I have so much to laugh at. I promise you, I'll give you all of that. But to laugh at ourselves because of how simple things really can be with the right perspective, if we avoid the complications of allowing perception to dictate our process for us. And we'll dive into that a little bit more.
Love that. Love that. And my next question to you is thinking about the conversation about procrastination. What would you say to people who are thinking about, how they procrastinate in their life? What would you say to people to give them that initial piece of leverage to consider not procrastinating?
It's funny when we talk about procrastination, right? It's always like we're not doing something, we're holding something off. And one of the simplest tips to avoid procrastination, or to really put procrastination in perspective for ourselves, is actually stopping. And what I mean by that is, if we're constantly going and going and going, and what happens, you'll appreciate this, we enable ourselves to have excuses. Like everything is a highway for us. And we just keep going and going and going. And we're going to try to jump into this car. And we're going to try to jump into this car. We're going to try to switch lanes, however you want to utilize the analogy. But until we actually stop and kind of put ourselves at a clear foundation, we're not really going to be able to see how we're procrastinating, what we're actually procrastinating on. And a lot of times what we'll find is when we give ourselves that opportunity to stop for a second, it really opens up a clear state of mind, like an open shoreline in front of us where we can see all of those waves. And maybe what we thought we were procrastinating on isn't actually what we're procrastinating on. It's something else leading into that. But until we stop first, we can't go. We can't grow. We can't do anything. We're literally just driving on a circle. We're driving on a racetrack in a circle instead of a forward highway with no end to it.
I love that. What I'm hearing you say, and the way I think about life, is getting to the root. Because so oftentimes we deal in the symptom of situations. Oh, yeah, I'm procrastinating on losing weight. No, what is the root of that? Is being healthy and making healthier choices and putting ourselves first. And we're going to get into that conversation in a minute. So what is something perhaps in your life that you procrastinated on, and what was that leverage for you to change? Was it something what you're talking about now, or talk to us about that time in your life where you procrastinated? Because I can definitely share tons of times where I procrastinated. I'm holding the book that I've written so many times that I procrastinated.
Yeah. So very much like you, I mean, look, we're all human beings, right? I could talk about stories of, going into my entrepreneurship and stories, bam, 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 bam. I'm actually going to use this last year as reference because it's recent and it's raw. And it was a very unscripted style year for me, and an unscripted reason that kind of made me realize what I was actually procrastinating on. So as you know, I took most of 2024 off from doing speaking engagements. I did a couple, but really taking on any coaching and consulting clients, kind of stopped doing my advisory stuff, still ran the nonprofit with Chris Salem. But I took some time off to focus on a couple other things in my career. Took over managing some properties for a good friend of mine here in Florida. And that was an eye-opening experience, to put it politely. But I spent the year keep telling myself, I'm going to get back into taking clients. I'm going to get back into getting back on stages. I'm going to get back into, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And that was in January of 24. And it was December of 2024 that I put the pieces back together and finally got that ball rolling for myself again with a great support system around me. Got a lot of, I'm very blessed to have a recognizable brand to a lot of people. So coming back in wasn't like I was starting over, but I realized that I was not procrastinating on my career. I was procrastinating on why I was holding off on that part of my career. And I came to realize towards the end of Q3, early Q4 last year, that the world in 2024 changed drastically. It's been changing over the last few years, but it has been changing drastically, especially in the personal and professional development world. And and you and I, that's something you and I have discussed many times privately and on panels that we've been in. But it was really watching the political landscape, watching everything kind of unfold, not just in the States, but with humanity in general.
Right.
I realized that I was procrastinating on my purpose, but not procrastinating on the job that I want to do itself. But something very powerful for people to understand. I said at the beginning that if you stop and give yourself a clear foundation, that will help avoid procrastination. When I stopped and really put everything into perspective for myself, I realized how clearly important it was for me to take this last year off. See, procrastination is not good, but the first three letters of the word are pro,
Right.
which is good. So it is good sometimes to accept why we procrastinated if we can realize it and channel it to do something. So again, there's been many moments in my life where I still do it myself, bro. I mean, you and I, we're all human beings,
Right.
but there's ways to navigate it more effectively. And that's what 2024 really represented for me. And I realized it represented for a lot of the world. And I think it's time for the world and I to stop procrastinating from having conversations like you and I are going to have tonight.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because that reminds me of, and I want to emphasize what you said before I share something, is the fact that we do need to stop. When I think about books, I think one of the greatest books written was Think and Grow Rich. And the thing in that title is think. Stop and think. Take a moment, take a beat to realize what's important. And you said it so perfectly. Why? Why is that important? And I tell my clients to dig 5 whys into something. Like, why do you want to lose weight? Okay, because of this, because of this, because of this, because of this. Oh, because I don't want to die with any regrets. Okay, now we have a bigger vision of a goal of what it is that we can focus on. And sometimes we're always going so hard in the paint, as my friend Walt says. We're always going so hard. I'm so busy, Davey. Oh my God, I'm so busy. All right, but what are you accomplishing? And are you accomplishing the right things that are going to fulfill you ultimately long term? Or are you accomplishing things to prove your validation or prove your worth to somebody who's important to you, or trying to prove something to yourself that isn't really that important when you think about it at the end of the day? So oftentimes we have that excuse. Well, I'm just so busy. I don't have time to start my business. I'm so busy. I don't have time to write the book. I'm so busy. I don't have time to take care of my health. It's bullshit. It's because we build ourselves into that situation. And so I love the fact that sometimes we have to say, I need to stop. I need to take a break. I need to take a step back. And I love that you shared that, because in 2016, I did that. I worked a corporate career for most of my life up until 2019. I did my speaking and my coaching and my podcast and all that other stuff on the side. It was my side hustle. I loved it. It was my way of I was very successful in my corporate position. I was very successful. I have a master's degree in leadership. I loved my job at that point. I loved leading people. I loved operations. I loved doing all that stuff. But my passion, my real passion, is motivating people, is inspiring people to think differently, and writing the books and doing the podcast and all those things. And I think about it in terms of one of the greatest books ever written by Gay Hendricks, called The Big Leap. I haven't talked about this book in a while. The Big Leap. It talks about sometimes we're operating in our zone of greatness, but sometimes we're operating in our zone of genius. Are you familiar with the book?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the book.
So I realized I was operating in my zone of greatness, or my zone of excellence, I think is the one right below genius. It's been a while since I've talked about it, which I really need to revisit. So I was operating my zone of excellence in leadership, but my zone of genius is really this. Like, I can do this all day long. I can talk to people and inspire people from stage, whatever it might be, having this conversation, getting people to think differently, asking them questions. But in 2016, I realized, why am I doing this? And that's when I was fairly clear on my why. Was before my son came into the picture. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to stop personal development altogether. I have a great job. I make 6 figures. I want to be normal. I've always been go, 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 push, push, push. I want to be the guy that goes home on Friday nights and buys a bag of potato chips and a 6-pack of beer and puts his hand in his pants like Al Bundy and watches football. And I haven't been a sports person since I was in my 20s, but I just wanted to be normal. And so I said, you know what? And it scared me to take a step back. It scared me to not be in personal development because I enjoy it, but I also get a lot of validation knowing that I said something to make somebody think differently. But I said, you know what? I told my wife this, and the big thing, a reason why I did that, because I wasn't being congruent with what I was saying. I was giving people advice or asking people questions in the back of my mind, Chris, hey, when are you going to leave that job that's very cushy and very certain, and what's your fear behind that? Oh, you don't want to become homeless again if you all these different things. But I stopped. I had my last coaching client, and I didn't market it anymore. And through that process, I went through what some might call the valley of the dark souls. I was walking my dog some days and wondering, okay, without that, who am I? What's my identity? can't I just be a normal person? Why do I feel the need to go? And I went and sought out therapy. I went to 5 different therapists. And finally, I came across one therapist who finally asked me the question that kind of opened up my perspective. She said, Chris, when did you stop being a kid? And it sounds like a crazy question, but I sat there and I stopped and I thought, oh my God. I said, probably about 7, 8, something like that. I said, I had a fairly okay, somewhat-ish childhood. I said, but things really, the wheels started coming off of everything at the 7, 8, 9. And at 13, I became homeless, and we all know the rest of that story. And so I went through some dark periods, and I sat there and I got through the other side of it in 2 years. I became a dad through that process. And I really realized, like, the why for me is creating a legacy that no matter when I pass away, that I'll be proud of the person that I was in those moments, in that day, because I was always living for the goal. I was always living for the accomplishment. And so I found myself procrastinating on things because I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of being judged. Right. And I realized that through that process, it reignited that passion within myself to go back at it and go back at it on my terms, even more so than I was already doing. I quit being the suit and tie speaker. I had already embraced the kick-ass thing. I was being just who I am, but I was also playing it a little bit safe. And then in 2019, my company and I came to a amicable, somewhat not really agreement to close out my position, and I trained somebody to replace me, and that's where I really started free falling in life and just really understanding that the gist of life is just to take that imperfect action. And I thought everything is going to be figured out. When you think about procrastination, I think about it as a form of self-sabotage. I think about it, again, the excuses. Talk to us about why people self-sabotage and maybe if they're not aware that they're doing it, ways that they can perhaps become in tune with that so that they could stop making those self-defeating decisions for themselves.
Yeah. So I love that. I love where we're about to go with this. So self-sabotage is really formed through a perception, and that's formed through emotion, which normally stems from some sort of limiting belief, something back from childhood, something like there's a moment, it could be multiple moments that are kind of like there with us, and it kind of like just keeps simmering and simmering and simmering. And what we do over time is we keep adding to that pot that's simmering, and eventually what happens is we add so much to it that the simmering goes away. And then what do we try to do in this analogy, right? We try to crank it back up to get the heat back on that pot, and then shit's going everywhere or it's boiling over. And self-sabotage is actually necessary in order for self-fulfillment.
Can you go deeper?
And what I mean by that, a simple way, because you don't grow through doing things the right way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't learn shit doing things the right way. That we do it the right way because we've already figured that out. Mm-hmm. It's going through like really tough shit, and not everybody has to go through tough shit to have like self-sabotage going on in their life. You don't need like a deep story. Chris has a very powerful story. My story isn't as flashy as other people's. Mine was, I kept getting in my own fucking way. I mean, that's really what I did. Mm-hmm. I kept getting in my own way, and it took me looking at myself in the mirror and asking myself, what are you doing here? And then I dude, this is a true story. I put this out on social media years ago. I share it every year that it comes back up in my memories. I remember looking at myself and saying, you know what? I give you permission to just go away. I give you permission to get out of my way so that I can see more. And I literally got out of the mirror and I waited about 30 seconds, like the amount of time you'd wait to let your phone, reset your router or something like that. And I get back in front of the mirror. And that 30-second pause, I realized that all of the self-sabotaging that I did, all of the unnecessary stress that I caused for myself, for my wife, for my family, for my friends, those that supported me, that saw so much more to me so many years ago, I realized that if I didn't do that dumbass shit, I wouldn't be Davey Williams. No one would know my nickname of the Lifestyle Lifeguard. No one would ask me why I show up to 3-piece suit and tie events in shorts, because that's really my brand and I am who I am, very much like you. I mean, our stories are very much aligned. Yep. But it took the self-sabotage to understand that it was self-fulfillment kind of disguising itself. And then I began to see the opportunity. Self-sabotage is going to happen. I don't care who you are. I don't care how wealthy you are, how broke you are. I don't care what walk of life you come from. Self-sabotage is absolutely human nature. Whether you could call it divine intervention in a sense, you could call it whatever you want to, but it's natural. Accepting the fact that we're going to do that kind of stuff to ourselves is natural. The trick is realizing that no matter how good we get at our process, no matter how good we become at what we do and taking action, and we've got all of our shit together, we are going to inevitably at some point self-sabotage something.
Yeah.
And it's about making it more manageable and managing that and eliminating expectations and really managing our emotions so that our emotions aren't managing us. So the times that I self-sabotaged myself, I took myself out to drowning water, wouldn't have been able to get back to the shoreline if I didn't go out to drowning water. Wouldn't appreciate the shoreline if I didn't go out to the drowning water. And that's something that I think a lot of people really need to put in perspective. It's okay to make mistakes, because if you're not making mistakes, you're doing something wrong. And that is self-sabotage. Trying to be perfection is a false paradigm. Perfection is self-sabotage. No one is perfect, unless your name is God or the whatever, however you want to spin it. None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. And we have to accept that. Self-sabotage is part of the roller coaster. We've all been on roller coasters.
Yep.
Do you know what the worst part? The roller coaster is scary as shit, but it's exhilarating. And as long as we stay strapped in from start to finish, guess what? We're going to be able to ride that roller coaster as much as we want to. And you know what? Things are going to happen along the way that are going to scare the living shit out of you, but that's okay. They're supposed to for a reason. Stop worrying about the self-sabotage aspect and like hurting yourself and what it did, and focus on what can I learn from this? And how simple is it to take 30 seconds and go, oh, I like you a lot better.
Right.
Oh, I did screw up. It's okay. Nice to meet you. The fake perfection, simple.
Right. It's true. It's true. It's like my friend Bob Donnell. I don't know if you know who Bob Donnell
I knew
was.
Bob well.
Okay, so
God
good. So
rest his soul.
I quote him all the time. When it becomes acceptable, it becomes inevitable. So when we ask ourselves in the mirror, when did it become acceptable to be self-sabotaging? When did it become acceptable to not love myself? When did it become acceptable to not give myself the opportunity of repositioning my perspective to see that mistakes aren't really bad, that they're actually, for me, I reframe them as learning opportunities. My son already knows this at 8 years old. He goes, it's not a mistake, it's a learning opportunity. I'm like, yeah, because when you learn from them, then you get to apply that knowledge in your life, and you get to look back and say, you know what, I screwed that up I made horrible relationship choices. But if it were not for my ex-girlfriend giving me a book said women are from Mars and men are from Mars, women are from Venus, John Gray, if I had not gone through that screw up, and had she not given me that book, and had I not read it and went, oh shit, okay, girls just want to talk about things and guys want to fix things. So if I can just shut up and listen and go, oh, how did that make you feel? Oh, is there anything I can do? Wow. So the mistakes, the quote unquote mistakes I made, were exponential learning lessons for me to now have, a 23-year relationship with my wife, be married for 17 years. So that's what we're saying, guys, tonight. When you think about that, the mistakes are not mistakes. They're learning opportunities, provided you don't continue making them over and over again and blaming them on someone else. That you have to take ownership. There's so many things, Davey, that you just said that I want to build upon. Number one is that self-sabotage. I found during COVID, my gift during COVID was to be able to give people coaching sessions. I just would go online and I would go live, especially when people are on lockdown. I said, okay, here's what I'm willing to do for you. I will give you a free coaching session. I won't sell you anything. It's just my way of giving one of my gifts to you, and you go do something nice for somebody else. Can we agree on that? And so over the point, I think it was like a year and a half I did this, because COVID went on a long time. Is I started developing, I always look for patterns, especially when I'm talking to people, and I look for those patterns and I hone it in, and I try to find, okay, what are some of the patterns that I can help people shift their perspectives on? And so probably about the 7th or 8th coaching call I did about 200. I started seeing this pattern a little bit. And then I also hear this whisper, and I believe in people should listen to their whisper. Sometimes we get that, turn right here instead of keep going straight. Oh, go in those little whispers, those little nudges, I believe are our spirit guides, God, source, universe, again, whatever it is that we believe in. I believe that those are little opportunities for us to really shift the direction of what we're doing. So I got this whisper that said, ask him this question. And as I was just like this, exactly like this, having the conversation with him, I heard, ask him this question. And I thought it in my head, I was like, that's a fucking ridiculous question. I'm not going to ask that question. People are going to think I'm an idiot. But I heard the message again. And I said, okay, Davey, I'm going to ask you a question. It's a yes or no question. And I don't want you to really think too much about it. Do you love yourself? Yes or no? And as soon as the last word left my mouth, I was like, this is a ridiculous question. Of course, people love themselves. They may not like themselves necessarily, but, and I didn't do a spreadsheet or anything. I would have to say probably 75, 80% of the people that I talked to, the 200 people that I talked to said, oh, that's a good one. I guess so. Yeah, I think for the most part, or God, you know what? I don't think I really do love myself. I think that maybe that's, thank you for asking that. And then progressively started having those conversations, but I realized I'm like, okay, people are out there have these expectations of having success and having the great relationship and the great body and all these different things. But at the core, at the root, like you said so eloquently at the beginning, the core and the root, if I don't love myself, then is the opportunity there for me to self-sabotage if I don't truly love and accept myself? And the answer is yes, of course. And so in some of these people, they became my coaching clients. And then we went back to that core thing. And I'm like, okay, what did life look like when you did love yourself? Or have you ever loved yourself? A lot of people haven't. And I'm like, okay, when did the point in your life, I go back to what my therapist said, when did the point in your life as a kid, did you decide that you weren't worthy? Because I believe, and I've scientifically, it's proven that we become the people that we're going to become between the 0 and 5, 6, 7, or 8, depending on what you look at. We become the people that we're going to become based on the beliefs and the conditioning and the inputs that we've had from our caretakers and all of their shit, whether directly or indirectly. And people started talking about, well, I think it was this point, or I think it was when I sexually molested, And I said, how different do you think your actions would be if you really started truly loving yourself and accepting yourself for who you were, and perhaps give yourself empathy and forgiveness for whatever you might have been through? Oh my God, I can't even imagine. I'm like, are you currently in a relationship? Perhaps it's not the best for you because you feel like you're settling or you don't deserve more. Yes. We started getting to these things. We started having some breakthroughs. And I realized that at the core, if we don't love ourselves, then we're going to self-sabotage. The other thing you talked about, and I'm going to go back to that in a second, but when you talked about the roller coaster, I love that analogy because we're going to talk about fear here in a couple of questions. And I love that analogy because I was at Six Flags Magic Mountain here in Southern California, and so many people were, talk about roller coasters as being scary. Life is scary. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. Literally in front of me, and I believe this message was sent to me for this. In front of me, the people were like, oh my God, we were in front of Colossus, which at the time was like the scariest roller coaster. Oh my God, look at how tall it is. Oh my God, look at the loop-de-loop. That's going to be so great. We're going to put our hands up. And they're just talking. They're excited. They're excited about the roller coaster. Not the people directly behind us, but the party right behind them. Probably a group of 6 or 7 people were like, oh my God, look at how tall it is. I wonder if they maintain this roller coaster. What if we fall out? What if the arm, what if And so you had these people right here who were excited, and then you had these people who were afraid, but it was the same exact experience, but it was the perspective of which these people were looking at it. And the group of people they were with, I think there was one person who was like, oh, come on, this is going to be fun, but everybody else was like, oh my God, it's going to be scary. Maybe we should, Same experience. So I love that the fact that you brought that up, because we're going to talk about fear. Now, going all back to that, the negative self-talk, like I've proven this beyond a shadow of a doubt. How can we help people, first of all, recognize that they have negative self-talk? And what is your recommendation for them to shift that language? And perhaps the third part of that is, what words do you suggest people eliminate or exclude from their vocabulary, and perhaps what they could replace it with? So it's kind of like a 3-part question. Yeah.
So one of the biggest words I think that people can eliminate is expectations. Expectations are emotion driven, right? If we set them, they can either let us down, or if we hit an expectation, it can set the emotions in another direction where it kind of will take our pendulum out of whack. So you detach yourself from outcome and you eliminate the word expectation. You replace that with anticipation.
Ooh,
See,
I like that.
anticipation is logic driven, right? So anticipation is more, this could happen, but I'm going to do this. If this happened, well, then I'm going to do, instead of expectations of, oh my God, I expect this roller coaster to be super scary as shit. And I don't want to, oh my God, I'm nervous to do this because like, versus anticipation of, okay, this could happen. I'm going to do this. This could happen. I'm going to do this.
Right.
Self-sabotage, as we were talking about earlier, perception. That's another word people really need. I really want people to put that word on a wall, like put the word perception on a wall with a big line through it and the mark and write perspective.
Yeah.
Because again, perception is something that we feel. It's an emotion. Perspective, again, is logic driven. See, self-sabotage is always emotional. There is no foundation in emotion. That's like trying to build a house on quicksand. Good luck. Right? So versus eliminate expectations and have anticipation. That gives you the opportunity to stay in more control of, like I said earlier, your emotions rather than letting them control you. Perception, that is another one where how many people that are watching this, when we talk about like self-sabotage, they're asking themselves, am I worth it?
Right.
Is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Worth is a very shitty and misused word. Look at it as value.
Mm-hmm.
How can I be of value? Will this be of value to myself? Will this be of value to others? Value is something that you can align. And when you align value, you pluralize it, and that becomes values. Values are sustainable. Values are what bring alignment to perspective versus perception. Your value system is very important. Negative talk, like self-talk, if you're doing it, you know that you're doing it. Like, we're all aware of it. It's accepting the fact that we're doing it. And we often go, well, you know, I'm really nervous, but if this happens, well then, you know, well then I'm going to do it. And if this happens, well then I'm going to do it. Well, you know what? Just think about the roller coaster analogy, because once you strap your ass in, you don't really have a choice.
Nope.
That thing is going to go.
For
You're on for the ride. It's freaking going. No matter what you do, that shit is going. So you have those people that you were talking about. You've got the people that are excited, and you've got the people that are like, well, I'm afraid, it's scary. Oh, this could happen. This could break. This could. Okay. Guess what we all share in common? What's the worth in being scared when the value is you're going to end up in the same place no matter what, right? So get your ass in the freaking roller coaster and strap yourself in. And yes, it's going to be scary as shit. It's okay to be scared when you accept that you know that you're scared, because when you're scared, you're putting yourself in a position to make a choice. So once that thing launches, yeah, it's going to be scary. But you know what? I would love to know the percentage, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I know a lot of people that were scared shitless of roller coasters when we were younger. When I was young, I was scared shitless of roller coasters. After my first roller coaster ride, I got on every single one of them. In the back of my mind, it was like, well, shit, this could go wrong. This could go wrong. Final Destination 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and however many freaking Final Destination movies they made. Like, well, this could happen. But you know what? It could not happen.
Right.
So I can either risk being wrong and not giving myself an opportunity, or who are we kidding? If the roller coaster goes, we're gonna realize it for about 5 seconds, and then we're meeting our lost loved ones up above. I mean, it really is about you've got to accept that the self-talk is going to be there no matter what. So every time you walk by a roller coaster, if you're afraid of them, you're always going to have that fear. Well, think about this. If you like another ride, what is that fear of the roller coaster going to then do to the fear of the next ride? Right. And the fear of the next ride to the fear of to the point that you go to I was just at the state fair, the Florida State Fair over the weekend with good friends of ours and my wife.
Oh, funny.
What, like, you'll end up being afraid of a fucking merry-go-round if you don't embrace the fear of the roller coaster.
Right.
And if you embrace the fear of the roller coaster, well, then you're not going to fear. It's always going to be there. And it's okay for it to be there. It's there for a reason to remind you of where you came from, what you've accomplished, what you've overcome. And for people like you and I, how can we help other people strap their asses into the roller coaster, stay on for the whole ride, and then be able to enjoy so many other rides out of that?
Mic drop. Boom. See, for those of you guys on the podcast aren't seeing on the video cast, I have a microphone on my tattoo. I'm doing a mic drop. Dude, I love what you just said. And the thing that sticks out to me the most is obviously the comparison. Like when we catch ourselves, I tell people to put a rubber band on their wrist. I've only had one person out of thousands of people ever argue about that, and they called it self-mutilation. I said you can take a long walk off a short pier, but to put a rubber band on and catch yourself. Oh wow, I just caught myself saying something negative of myself. I talk to people and I say, would you allow who the person you love the most? Oh, I love my sister, I love my son. Would you allow them to speak the way that you speak to yourself? Would you allow them to do? No. Okay, so when did it become acceptable for you to do it? And if you love that person so much, if you're only giving that person a 5 of your self-love, a 5 of yourself, but you say you love that person on a 10, then are you shortchanging that person of who you truly can be as a person, as an individual? I'd go into a longer example of that, but you get the gist of it. And so I get them to catch themselves. I'm like, okay, catch yourself the next time you're saying, I tell people at least 3 words to eliminate from your vocabulary, which is always, never, and try. Like I always screw up. I can never get it right. I'll never find the right person. I always get the job wrong. Those things plant that presupposition in your brain to say, oh, listen, I might as well not even bother trying, or I'm never going to be really good at that, or I'm always going to fail at that, whatever it might be. Replace those words. Right. And I'd sit there and I challenge people on the word try. Like, I'm going to try to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I've heard people say it so many times this year already. I'm going to try to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to try to eat better. I had somebody actually fucking ask me, Davey, how to eat healthy. And I was like, you don't want it fucking bad enough. I'm like, have you ever heard of this thing called Google? Google? Have you heard of this thing called YouTube, of this chat GBT kind of thing? I said, if you want it bad enough, you'll get resourceful and you'll figure it out. And so this try thing is a big form of self-sabotage, because it tells people like, oh, listen, Davey's going to try to get up. Oh, good for Dave. No, it's like, you're either going to fucking do it or not. That's it. You're either going to do it or not. I am going to lose 15 pounds in 3 months, and I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 days a week. And I'm going to commit to doing it because I want to live a long, prosperous life and see my son get married. Right? That big enough why, that leverage in your brain to be able to sit there and say, okay, what is the legacy that I'm leaving every single day with every choice I make? And that word you said was anticipation. And I love that. I think about it in terms of front end loading our dreams and setting the intention for what we're going to experience ahead of time, because I've proven scientifically and experientially, our brain doesn't know the difference between real reality and perceived reality. Right? We have a bad dream. What happens? We wake up and we're sweating and we're panting. We're out of breath. And we're like, oh, somebody was just fucking chasing me with a knife. I just fell off a bridge and I was falling, forever. Like, did it really happen? No. But your brain was powerful enough to create that experience that your physiology of your body said, holy shit, we're falling. Holy shit, we're getting chased by, a Freddy Krueger, whatever it might be. Like, the same thing happens in the positive. So when you start saying, instead of, oh my God, I'm afraid of this roller coaster, I'm excited about being afraid. I'm excited about pushing myself to do something I don't necessarily want to do. I'm excited to getting to the end of it and actually thinking to myself, holy crap, I did that. And I actually had a good time with it, and just front end loading that. So I love that you said anticipation. And there was one other thing that I was going to say, but I think it's coming away from that. As part of that self-love and that self-sabotage, I talked about it before, but I want to get your thoughts on this. How can we help individuals who are watching this and listening to this right now have more empathy and forgiveness for themselves? Because I find so many people are still blaming themselves. We do things one time, but we blame ourselves and we relive it over and over and over again. We punish ourselves. What is your thoughts and your strategies on finding that empathy and forgiveness for ourselves and recognizing that was a moment in time, that was the person that we were? What can you say to somebody to get them kind of through that? Because I know without a shadow of a doubt that once people find that true forgiveness for themselves and realize that was happening for them and not to them, that the whole paradigm of their life, their perspective, as you said, starts to shift. So, and maybe if you could share a story about where maybe something in your life where you had to forgive yourself or have empathy for yourself as part of your growing journey.
Yeah. So, we, again, it comes back to expectations more often than not, but people are afraid to forgive themselves. And there's always a plethora of reasons as to why they're afraid to forgive themselves. And I think a lot of it boils down to the human nature of not wanting to be wrong and not wanting to take accountability. We are geared to not take accountability. We are geared as young children to, even in school, like you say, between 0 and 7, right? So let's think about a 7-year-old. A 7-year-old does something stupid that, the 7-year-old shouldn't do. Its first inclination is to do what? Come up with some BS excuse as to why this happened. And the 7-year-old is going to try to push off taking accountability. It's human nature to push accountability off. Yeah. People are afraid of accountability, but it's accountability that is actually our best friend. When you look at something in your life that you're nervous about forgiving yourself with, or you're having a tough time really getting over, think about the fact that how many hours, how many days, how many weeks, how many months, how many years you've been going through this. And it probably sucks pretty bad to be going through that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want everybody to do is take all of that out of the equation and focus on a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade. See, that doesn't change. All that we can change within that is, are we going to allow the perception that it's our fault and we don't want to accept that it's even if it's not our fault, we have to forgive ourselves for accepting that it's not our fault.
Right.
We have to really break accountability down to its brass core at the end of the day. For self-forgiveness is imperative, but it's not selfish. And that's another thing. I think people really, sometimes it's not accountability that they face. It's like they're afraid, they feel like it's selfish to forgive themselves. Well, if I forgive myself, it's not, it's self first. There's a difference between selfish and self first, which that could be a whole nother 3-part series. But you have to understand that forgiveness stems from nothing more than awareness. And I will tell a very transparent part of my story. I've told this story before, but for the audience that may not know me, this is going back about, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, maybe. My wife and I made a move sight unseen to Georgia. She had a career opportunity. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And in that, I made so many mistakes with my career. I started pushing things, and I really did blame the other people that were involved. And yes, there were other people at fault in the situation, but I was like, it's not my fault. And then my wife and I lost everything. Now, when I say we lost everything and I fucked up so badly, I want people to, our house, our car, our German Shepherd dog that we adopted when we were still living in Florida because we wanted to do a good deed. And I wanted my wife to have something because I was working late hours with the restaurants that I was managing. And I wanted my wife to be safe. We could not afford to save our dog.
Oh my God. I think I remember
the last time I saw Joey, I was laying on the front yard of the house next to the car that we were going to be losing. The teddy bear that my mother gave me when I was a child, gone. I had made so many mistakes, and I was so angry with everybody else.
Yeah.
The teddy bear was what did it for me, because my late mom was still alive at the time. When I knew that I wasn't going to be able to go back in and get my stuff, and the teddy bear was going to be gone, I started blaming myself to the point that no one else was accountable then. It was just all me. I'm an epic failure of a husband. I'm a failure of a son. I'm a failure of a brother. I'm a failure of everything that I believe in. I sacrificed over my ego. And I had a mental breakdown in our bedroom in Georgia.
Wow.
And my wife, scared shitless. Me, from what I remember, kind of scared shitless, but was talking to dead people and family members at the shoreline in my head. So that was fun. We eventually left Georgia, thank God. We did not like Georgia, but it took me a long time to come to the realization that, yes, I made a mistake and I paid the price for it dearly, literally. My wife paid the price for it. But my wife stayed with me. My mom, who I had to tell, lost her. I lost her teddy bear. To have to suck that up with my family, my in-laws, that was rough. But
Imagine.
In that forgiveness of myself, I began to realize that I had to forgive myself for not forgiving other people. And then what that did for me was open the floodgates to the rest of my life, because from there I decided I wasn't going to work for somebody anymore. See, I was able to stop procrastinating, getting on with my life and moving my life's way forward when I forgave myself, because it was okay to forgive myself. It was okay to forgive other people. And some of those people I've actually grown to be very close friends with to this day.
Wow.
But it catapulted what everybody knows me as now. It catapulted me into finding Chris Salem, who became my mentor, and I was his protege for years. And now Chris and I are not only, he's one of my best friends, but we're business partners, nonprofit, for-profit side. My circle has grown. I have Christopher Rausch in my life. We have so many people, and I have so many things to be grateful for, all because I decided to just forgive myself and forgive other people. And it's okay to forgive ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, because it's okay to screw up. It's okay to make mistakes, but it's not okay to waste our most valuable asset. And that is not money. That is time.
Right.
Time doesn't give a shit about your sorrow, your enthusiasm, your ups, your downs, your good, your bad. Time doesn't give a rat's ass. The only thing that time gives a rat's ass about is time. Time is the most selfish asset, but the most important one that we have. And that is something we really need to remember with procrastination. Time doesn't change no matter what. What are we going to do to adopt a mentality and allow our methodology to adapt to attract the changes in our lives and our businesses that we deserve to? Because time, they say time doesn't wait. Then why the frick are we?
Right. So many people are that, and thank you for sharing that, Davey. That is a very, very powerful testimony. And that's what I love about this show, is getting to the root and having people share their experiences, because it's so easy for people to sit there and look at Chris and Davey, go, oh my God, you guys got it all figured out and you're so successful. Chris, you live in California, you live in Florida, blah, blah, blah. But it's because of those dark moments, those valley of the dark souls, those mental breakdowns where we're talking to dead people and we're going, okay, how the fuck do I get myself out of this situation? And we think it's hopeless and we think it's endless. And we have those ideations of like, well, maybe it's better if I'm not here and all that stuff. But step by step, decision by decision, the love and the support of the people that are in our lives, that we can grow from those experiences, and be here today to share this conversation with people, so that whoever is listening, wherever you guys are listening from, that you can understand that Davey and I are no different than you, right? It's all a matter of that perspective and saying, today is the day. Today is the day. I give people a powerful exercise. I can't do it. I did it for a while, but I put a jar of marbles on my desk at one point. And I think at that point it was my 30s, and I put it for every year. I figured the average life expectancy was 78. And so I think I put it in terms of months. And so every time a month would go by, I'd take a marble out, but it became too painful to realize, oh my shit, like time is passing me by. And that was in my 30s. Now I'm 55. I'll be 56 next month. You're so absolutely correct, because so oftentimes we're playing the someday game. Oh, someday. And for me, 55 was the hardest year in my life, perspectively wise, and realizing if I don't get my shit together and start working, I have a 69 Charger in my garage right below me. I literally don't have another 30 years to get it painted. The joke with all my friends is like, Chris, you're never gonna get that paint. You're never gonna get that car painted. You're gonna die in it. You're gonna be buried in it. But now the realization is I can't play the someday game anymore with that. And now I've actually become okay. It's kind of a weird psychological block with me in that car, but it's about life. Is now I've become more than okay with not having it painted. It doesn't identify me in any way, shape, or form. It's a beautiful car. It's a fucking 69 Charger. For those of you guys don't know, it's like the generally, it's not orange and shit like that. It's not painted. It's every fucking color or primer you can imagine. It sounds like a rape tape. But the point is like, in this moment, we can have that perspective of saying this, I'm in this moment hearing these two guys right now, and maybe perhaps it's my time to start showing myself more compassion. It's my time to start having more love and empathy for myself. And I'll share an exercise that I had people do. I had other questions I was going to ask you, but we'll go a little bit longer this time because I'm really digging this conversation. And then I'm going to ask you an important question based on your social media post I saw earlier. But one of the most powerful exercises I have people do, and that I've done, and actually God as my witness, I need to do it again, is what I call the toleration list. What am I tolerating for myself? What am I tolerating from other people? And what am I tolerating from inanimate objects? And I have found through my personal experience, I did this on my own. Actually, I think my coach may have given it to me back in 2019, but we tolerate so much and we put up with so much and we don't ever realize it. We don't ever become really truthfully aware. And I think that's one of the conversations we've been having tonight, Davey. If I try to think of a summary word, is becoming aware. Like I'm aware that I'm in a situation that I no longer like. I'm aware I've become the person that I don't want to be. I'm aware that I want more out of my life. I'm aware that I have to start taking that imperfect action in order to achieve the goals that I want to achieve and to leave this life in a much better way than I came here as. And so when I have people do that exercise, time and time again, people will come back to me. And the first week, I give them 7 days. They come back to me and I tell them to write it down. Inevitably, probably 95% of them, give or take, have like 3 or 4 things in each category. And by this time, I already know the person. And I'm like, yeah, were you really honest? God, Chris, it was a tough exercise. I know I'm tolerating some things, but I just, here's the ones I came up with. I'm like, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do it for another 7 days. And I want you to carry that pad of paper around, put it in your phone and really catch yourself. Like, do you have to hold the washer door closed in order for it to engage? You have to hold it for a couple of minutes. Do your windshield wipers not come on right away? Does your turn signal, whatever it might be, just really write it down and just be honest with yourself. Like, I'm tolerating the fact, well, I just accept it. No. What are you really tolerating? And then they come back with a whole shitload of stuff. Half the time they're in tears and like, oh my God, I didn't realize that I let it get to this far. And I'm like, okay, again, that self-sabotage that, I'm accepting what I get because my value isn't high enough. I don't value myself enough, or I'm, whatever it might be. There's tons of reasons. And I'm like, what would your life be like if you didn't tolerate a third of those things? If you just eliminated those tolerations? Maybe a couple of the big ones or a lot of little ones. How much more time would you have? How much more self-respect would you have? I haven't even talked about that, the self-respect. How much more energy would you have? Oh, well, Chris, you don't understand, Like, no, it's bullshit. It's the story you're telling yourself. You have preloaded your brain into believing that your kids will not help you with the laundry, that your husband won't make his own sandwiches, because if you died tomorrow, don't tell me your kids would go without laundry and your husband would. They would figure out that, and perhaps maybe you've cut them short and you just haven't asked them. You just haven't asked them that question. So I believe that when people do those toleration exercises, a lot of things can shift. What is something in your tool bag, your toolkit, an exercise that people can do who are listening to like this that perhaps can give them the bigger shift, whatever it might be, whether it's something we've talked about or not talked about? What is one of those powerful exercises that you believe can unlock or shift something for people?
Yeah, so one of the things that I do, this is kind of a generic one, and people are just going to have to humor me with this, but I like to call it the baggage dump. Now, I'm an eco nut. I'm a beach bum. A lot of people know that about me. A lot of my work and my analogies are derived from coastal inspirations. But
love the beach.
I like to have people like think about. Usually, we're thinking about the shoreline in my world, and we're looking in front of us at the ocean. But in this analogy, I actually want us to, metaphorically speaking, destroy our ocean environment to prove a point to ourselves. And that is, I want you to turn sideways on the shoreline. Now, every beach that you go to, whether it's in Southern California, Northern California, South Florida, East Florida, West Florida, wherever the beach is to you, Australia, just picture a beach. Even if you don't like the beach, get over it for this analogy. When you look left or you look right, especially if you're thinking about the Jersey Shore, like I do, there's trash, there's garbage, there's something. I want you to take all those moments, all the bullshit that in your world, Chris, that people are telling you, and you're like, hashtag no excuses. That's bullshit. That's the story you're telling yourself. I tell people, I want you to put all of that nonsense into a bag, because all of that nonsense represents your baggage. Now, I want you to take that bag and I want you to get all of the baggage, everything. Normally, they'll write it down for me, and we do a really funny, cool exercise with that. But for this, we're just going to do it for analogy's sake for everybody. So you've got this bag. Now, the more you try to drag the bag, I'm sure it's getting pretty heavy at this point. Mm-hmm. You probably have already cracked the bag, ripped the bag, so now more shit's falling out behind you. I don't want you to be lazy. Go back and pick that shit up. If the bag falls apart completely, start this exercise over and get yourself a better freaking trash bag. Take that trash bag. Now, in every beach picture that you see, most beach pictures, when you think about a beach, you always think about a pier.
Right.
Every beach is a pier. I know they do in California. Southern California has some of the coolest piers and some of the coolest sunset scenes I've ever seen in my life. I want you to take that bag and I want you to throw it off the pier. Now, here's what's going to happen. I love when people, especially the smart-ass clients, will say, well, dude, if the bag was ripping and the bag is falling and I threw it off the pier, it's probably going to break and it's going to come back.
Right.
Yes, it is. But guess what? That shit's not coming back altogether. It's going to come back piece by piece. Where is it now that it's coming back piece by piece? In front of you. You're not going side to side looking. You're seeing the ocean in front of you. You can see those things, that baggage that may inevitably come back. But what is it? More manageable. So you can grab that one at a time, throw that shit in a trash can, and then it's not going back out to sea. Now you are no longer, metaphorically speaking, destroying our oceans, and thank you very much for that. Proud contributor to many ocean preservation organizations. And now, what do you have? A clear shoreline, a clear foundation, where you can accept that some days there's going to be some awesome waves. Some days there's not going to be any waves. Some days there's going to be shit. But you know why you don't have expectations? Because sometimes you're going to see something floating back and you're going to say, oh shit, here it comes. And it's seaweed. So again, you can anticipate it, but with a clear foundation and understanding, you'll be able to start to manage the self-sabotage, manage the negative self-talk, manage. The more we manage, the more that proves that we're clear. That means that we're committed to what we're clear about. That means that we're in control of what we're clearly committed to. And we can have compassion for those mistakes that only come back and haunt us if we allowed to. But if we consistently put the shit in the bag, take it out, break it out piece by piece, throw it in that dumpster, and let the garbage company take it away once and for all, you're standing firm at that shoreline. So it's a visual analogy, but it's something that everybody can relate to.
Davey Williams. I love that. And I'm a massive beach lover. Actually, I'm staring at, actually, you know what's funny? What's funny, not funny. I'm staring at two pictures that I took with my cell phone back in when was I there? I was in Florida. I was in some fancy rich part of Florida that my aunt and her uncle have a house. And I took pictures of the sunset right there. I'll send you a picture after I'm done, but I actually have them in my studio hanging up here. They're canvas prints of that. Okay, before I'm going to switch gears. Thank you for that. We've got Dennis Nurmela from China in here. Dennis, I got to reach out to you. I want to have a conversation about China. I think there's a lot of stuff going on with China with TikTok and everything. So thank you, Dennis, for tuning in over there. Appreciate you. Dennis says here, he goes, light is brighter in the dark. 100%. I have a thing right behind me, a saying that says, To be a star, you must shine your light, follow your path, and don't worry about the darkness, for that is when stars shine their brightness. Shine the brightest. That's a thing I have there. My mom gave me years and years ago. So thank you, Dennis, for being here. Appreciate you. Robert says here, Mopar baby, 100%. Yes. So we could go on for hours. I knew this conversation. I'm going to have you back. We can continue going on here. But your social media post earlier today. There's obviously here in the United States, we have people in 33 countries watching for us. Labels. I love the fact that you brought up labels. And I'm a massive believer that we're more the same than we are different, to find the commonalities. You were speaking my language in that post. It's a new thing I've kind of done on the show here and there, but I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. I'm going to let you go solo screen. I want you to talk about, pretend you have a microphone to the world. You know, the world is going, depending on what perspective you have. I have people who literally post, the world is coming to an end, the world is shitty, I live with one of those people. She doesn't watch or listen to the podcast, so I could talk about her. I'll go downstairs and tell her anyway. I'm a firm believer the world's a beautiful place. I go out and I meet and I talk to people all the time, whether they're Trump supporters, Biden supporters, Harris supporters, trans supporters, whatever they might be. I usually find, except for the fucktard who was looking at his cell phone today and almost ran into my car, people are really good. I wanted to shove that cell phone so far down his fucking throat. Oh, I was mad. That's what triggers me is people on their cell phones in their cars. But I would love for you to share your perspective on what can help people, no matter what country they're in, what walk of life they're from, help them kind of identify what you shared in there about labels and about seeing us more as the same. However you want to position the message, I trust you implicitly. I'm going to put you full screen. I'm going to let you have an opportunity. Go for about 2 minutes. I'll come back on here when time's up, but I would love for you to share that and help humanity. Deal? Okay. You're on. You got a microphone to the world. Oops.
All right. So for context, everybody, the post that Chris is referring to, it was politically driven, but it really goes to the core of, I think the world is feeling the same thing that a lot of people here in the United States are feeling. And what I want people to remember, I had an incident where I was at the grocery store and there was a guy in front of me and he had a MAGA hat on. He was arguing with a couple in front of him who did not share his views. And to keep this short, I had pulled them aside and asked if I can get involved in the conversation. And the first thing I asked them was what they were doing. Like, what are you? The first thing that people answer, if you ask them about something, they said, well, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm this party, I'm that party. No, you're not. You're a human being. See, politics have become such an emotional focal point for people right now. And the reality is, politics have not divided us. We have divided us. For centuries, we have had elected officials, and this will tie into life and business. We've had elected officials that come in that we don't all agree with. But at the end of the day, we all come together, and instead of trying to figure out what's wrong with the other side, why everybody is fucking wrong, believe it or not, we have more in common with what's right. See, I asked these people if they have families. Yes. Do they like living in Florida? Yes. Did they come here for warmer weather? Yes. Would there have been a political conversation if there wasn't a shirt on or an attire item that it was a hat? He also had a shirt, but they were really going on the hat. Would there have been this conversation? No. See, the commonality is that we are all human beings and that we each have the choice to respect one another's opinions, because that's all politics are. They stand for nothing, but we all stand for something. But we have to respect that so do other people. So instead of worrying about a label of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, an independent, or whether you're a man, a woman, a transgender, who gives a rat's ass? I am Davey. That is Chris when he comes back on. You are you. We are all united in the fact that we are all human beings. And we all deserve empathy and respect. And somewhere in compromise, there is a solution. There is balance. But we have to put emotions aside and allow logic to step in. Science has been politicized. Everything has been politicized. What does that even mean? It's been emotionalized. And we've allowed that to happen. So I will sit here and tell you that I may not be upset with the results of the election, but I don't think that the people who don't see things the way that I do are bad people. I don't think they're idiots. I don't think they're heathens of the world. And neither should you, because we all want the same thing at the end of the day. We want to live a happy and prosperous life. We want the best for ourselves and for our families, for our communities, for our businesses. We all just have a different way of going about getting there. But guess what? That's what it takes to grow and move forward. It doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong. It's about how can we do for each other. JFK said it best when he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I'll put a spin on that. Ask not what other people in the world and politics can do for you, but what can you do for yourself and for other people? We all deserve dignity and respect. And if we give it, we will find the solutions that we all want. The labels, the name calling, it has to stop. If we haven't learned our lesson, that gets us nowhere. It has divided us. But just because somebody does it doesn't mean you have to. So to all, and I will say this, I will go on the political end on this one. To all the people who are happy with where we are, be grateful that we're there, but don't gloat about it. To the people who are not happy about it, I understand. Because there's a lot of people, if this went the other way, that would feel the same thing. But the hatred, the vitriol, the animosity, we can stop blaming other people. We can stop procrastinating on coming together. We can stop enabling division and start empowering unity in the things that unite us. And there are so many more things that unite us because that's the quality of humanity that will always trump the quantity of consequences and incidents in humanity. We can do better, but we have to do it for ourselves. So stop expecting other politicians to do it. Stop expecting anybody to do it and start doing it for yourself and ask yourself, what the fuck was the point of losing that relationship with a family or friend? And when in your family history have relationships been ruined, friendships been ruined because of a freaking politician or many more of them? Stop allowing the division. And when you do that, so much of what we're going through right now as a society is procrastination because we are focused on bullshit that does not matter. And I see Chris is back on, so I'll say this to all the people in California. I don't give a rat's ass who's responsible for the problem. The reality, there's a freaking problem. And how can we solve this problem together? How can we come together to solve this problem? It doesn't matter if you like the person in charge or not. Who gives a shit? Gavin's pretty. Gavin's this. Gavin's that. Trump's this. Trump's that. Who gives a shit? There are people whose lives are ruined. How can we fix that? And how can we stop this from continuing? We can stop the wildfires in California, and we can stop the wildfires in our country, in the world, and in our own lives. So stop procrastinating by focusing on shit that doesn't even matter.
Double mic drop. But yeah, exactly, dude. I'm gonna be replaying that. I'm gonna snip that out because I firmly believe in my heart of hearts that so many people feel the same as you. And it's because we take the aberrant few, we take the few people on social media, we take the few. I mean, I don't watch the news or follow politics. I stopped doing that over 10 years ago because I found myself yelling at a television. I found myself finding other people who thought exactly how I thought, and everybody else was wrong. And I said, what would it be like if I gave up the news and politics for 2 weeks and I literally get news bites here and there? If I feel like scrolling on my little news feed thing, I can see what's kind of going on. I know my wife will fucking tell me about it. But you're so absolutely right. The world is such a beautiful place, and we need to find those commonalities, and we need to find those similarities, and we need to sit there and say, what can I do? It's not the government that's going to save me. What can we do as a community? And anytime you see these situations happen, you see the community come out. My friend was in Hurricane, I think it's Irene, I forget him, in North Carolina recently. And from that was before the election. I think it was Irene. I forget it. Or Helene. something like that, something with an Ian.
There's only
And yeah, Helene. And he's a very passionate advocate for humanity and doing what he can do. He created a sleeping bag campaign. So I donated sleeping bags. I went and bought them on Amazon, had them shipped to him because he was going out giving sleeping bags to people who didn't have a place to stay. And I said, what's the one thing that and I knew his answer to this, but I wanted to hear it from him. I said, what have you seen as a result of what has happened, the tragedy that has happened? He says, the community has come out. Nobody's asking who you voted for. None of that. It's about, what can I do for you? Hey, I've got an extra bedroom. Hey, I've got some water. Hey, I've got a generator. Hey, I've got this. It's not about anything like that. And I tell people all the time that, if I was out at Disneyland in a public place, that if I suddenly fell down or my son fell down or something happened, I can guarantee you a group of people would come over and try to render aid. And it wouldn't matter who we voted for or anything, or what sexual orientation, what God we follow or anything like that. People are naturally good people. And I believe that is true, and that there are people like us need to step up and say that and get people like the people that are focusing on that stuff to kind of shift their perspective. So thank you, Davey, for sharing that. That is massively important. You said it spot on. I couldn't agree more. I'm all about that. I hate labels, and I challenge my friends who come out with that, whatever side they're on. I'm like, hey, what would you think if your son came out like this, or da 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 da. So thank you for that. Thank you for this conversation tonight. I want to, where can people get a hold of you and learn more about Davey? I definitely want to have you back on the conversation. But where can people get a hold of you, get on social media, find out what you're about, and consume more of your content?
Absolutely. So people can visit daveyspeaks.com. I'll give them a little bit of an overview of everything that I do. It has all my social media links on there. You can reach out to me, direct cell phone. I'm no bullshit. I'm not one of those Google boys. So you can, I can pretend that I'm a business that's not there. I'm a real human being. I love real human being calls. So all of my information is there. Anybody that would like to connect would love to. Anybody that would love to have further conversations, I'm always happy to. And Chris, I love you, brother, like a brother. And I love everything that you stand for. And thanks for the opportunity to be here. It was a true honor.
Many more to come. Thank you, brother. And like I said, I'm not having too many guests on here, but I definitely want to have you back. And there's so many different things that we could talk about. So thank you. I'm going to put you backstage. I'm going to end out the show. Don't go anywhere so I could still have a few words with you. Then I have to run downstairs because I got a text message saying, hey, we're ready to play Uno with you. Where are you at? You normally end your show before this, but I told him, I said it was a great show. So I'm going to place you backstage. Don't go anywhere. And then I'll be right back. So there you have it, guys. Thank you all for joining us. I know a lot of you East Coasters watch us in the morning, Mary Kay and all you beautiful people. Thank you. Please, I don't ask for this very often, but please share this out. Share this out. I mean, if nothing else, share out the last 2 minutes of what Davey said. I think it was 3 minutes. We need to do and be more of that. Right? The conversation tonight was beyond valuable. There were plenty of strategies and mindset techniques that you can incorporate in your life, because when you become happier, again, like I said, if you came into the conversation halfway through on the video cast, go back and check it out at the beginning. But here's the crux of it. When you start to feel better about yourself, you start treating yourself better, you start saying more positive things, you catch yourself in that negative self-talk. You know what? I always don't screw things up. I always don't, I never, I have done those things. What can I do in this short-term moment to prove that to myself? What are some things that I'm willing to commit to over the next 3 weeks that I can prove to myself that I've got this? And it's not about proving to yourself. It's just about taking that disciplined action and not saying that you're going to try to do something, because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether I met you or not, whether I, and I know we have over 100,000 listeners. I know we're all more the same. And I know when you take that commitment to say, I'm going to take care of my health. And if you haven't listened to the show, I call it the 5: hydration, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and vitamin D. Make sure you're drinking half your body weight in ounces of water every single day. Just that fucking alone. When you're dehydrated, you make shitty decisions. You go to your short-term gratifications. Your body's comprised of like 80-90% water. I can't remember exactly what it is. If you don't drink water, I hate water, but I put Propel in my water. I probably get too much sodium in my diet, but I love the way the grape tastes, and I consume at least a gallon of water every single day. That's why people sit there and say, wow, you look amazing for 80 years old. I'm like, yeah, it's because I drink a lot of water. Sleep. I track my sleep with an Oura ring. You have to make sure you're getting deep sleep. Vitamin D. Even though I get tons of sunshine, I had to take a vitamin D supplement because I had a vitamin deficiency test, and I found out I wasn't getting enough vitamin D. Found out I was feeling depressed and weird and icky, and I started taking a weekly vitamin D supplement. All these things, eating nutritiously, right? Go 5-6 days a week, eat really, really good, and then go off the rails on a Sunday or a Saturday. Have a really good meal, have a cheat meal, whatever it might be. It's not going to kill you. You find you have something to look forward to, and you start to feel better, and you start to look better, and you want to buy new clothes, and you just, all of that builds upon itself. And the people out there who are calling people names and all that, they're just unhappy with themselves, because we often reflect upon other people what it is that we feel about ourselves. And if we can get a bunch of people together, misery and fear and anger and hate is one of the most common things that are joining people right now. And it's frustrating the shit out of me, because again, I meet people from all walks of life. I have people that are friends of mine from all over the world that follow the Quran, that follow Christianity and Catholicism and Judaism and agnosticism and all that other. Ultimately, like Davey said so perfectly, we all want the same thing, right? We want prosperity, we want opportunity, we want fairness, we want equality, right? I know people that are against transgender and they're this, but when you start having the conversation with them, they're just about certain aspects of it. And when you ask people questions and you ask for clarifications, you start to get better answers. And then you sit there and say, oh, how can we look at this from an objective standpoint? How can we look at this in order, like, what would be some of the solutions we can do in our own communities? What are some things that we can do? What can we do in our own family? Start with yourself, start with your family, and let that opportunity for yourself to share your gifts with the world, and watch what happens to your level of satisfaction, your level of contentment, your level of contribution. Because I invite you to do this. Wake up in the morning and say what you're grateful for, and set your intention for the day. Don't watch the news. Don't look at politics. Don't think about what a shitty day it's going to be, because you're going to find that. Your reticular activation system will find that. You know what? I'm excited for today, because I'm going to push myself in maybe an area that I've been uncomfortable with. And I'm excited to feel that fear. I'm excited to see and follow myself through with this and be able to get to a term of completion. So you wake up, you say what you're grateful for, you set the intention for the day. My intention is always to use my words and my actions to make this world a better place. My intention is to be playful and present with my son, which I need to go do right now, because he's waiting for me to play Uno. And then at the end of the day, go to bed and think about what you're proud of. What am I proud of? What did I complete today? How did I contribute? What legacy did I get an opportunity to leave today? This conversation tonight, a couple other things that happened today. I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to think, I'm really proud of myself. I'm really happy with the fact that I had that conversation with the cashier and they shared that little thing and I was able to share something with them. I'm really proud of the fact that I got to make kids smile today, whatever it might be. And you go to bed and you're feeling proud and you feel that sense of gratitude, and it just builds on itself. It just built, and the world needs love. As cliche as it is, my son is 8 years old, and I want the world for our kids. I want the world for our kids. And it's just a matter of us putting our differences aside and finding the commonalities, treating ourselves better, and for God's sakes, get the right people in your life. All right, we're going to be back here next week on the Raw Unscripted show. Next week is a solo show. So I will be doing something solo. If you got ideas or suggestions, send me, I haven't thought of the topic yet, but send me an email info@noexcusescoach.com. Obviously, a lot of you guys are connected with social media. Send it to me like that. The week after, we have another amazing person, Brian Kelm. He's a return guest. He was on at the very beginning of this podcast. He's an amazing guy you're going to love. So go out there and do the things that you say you're going to do. All right. I love you guys. Be sure to share the shit out, and we will see you here next time on the Raw Unscripted show. Peace out.